In the scorching desert, a group of fighters is being attacked by a monster and taking advantage of the chaos. Park Hyun-myung is taking down those fighters with his sword. Hyun-myung is clearly exhausted, so some of the remaining fighters decide to group up and attack him all at once while he is weakened. At that moment, Hyun-myung activates hidden traits just as the group of fighters moves in to finish him. Because of this sudden activation, he is able to fight back and finally realizes that this is truly happening. Now, let's go back and see how things ended up this way. In a messy room where cleanliness feels like a distant dream, Hyun-myung is playing a game on his computer and ends up losing. He lets out a sigh, thinking of the game as trash. Hyun-myung believes that his life is anything but smart or well-managed. He plays games on weekdays, not just on weekends, while everyone else is working hard. After Hyun-myung quit his job a few months ago, he locked himself in his room and lived like someone completely absorbed in gaming. Hyun-myung has spent 5 years of his life on a single game called Pangenia, turning his life into something legendary in the worst possible way. The game Pangenia gained brief popularity 5 years ago. The developer promoted it with the phrase that if any player clears the game, they will be granted one dream. It was a ridiculous bait line that made players with too much free time curious enough to try it, but they all eventually failed. 5 years passed. No one ever cleared it. The player count dropped, and now, if Hyun-myung is not logged in, the number of online players in the game becomes 0. Pangenia was infamous for its brutal difficulty when it launched. There are bosses that make players question whether they are even meant to be defeated, companions who betray the player without any warning, and named NPCs who hunt the player down if they receive a bounty. But the worst part of all is that if the player's character is defeated, then everything disappears instantly. In other words, the player must start from scratch. It is truly an unforgiving game. Because of its overwhelming difficulty, its brief popularity vanished quickly. At this point, Hyun-myung can only think that someone must be actively preventing players from clearing the game. Hyun-myung had a character loaded with 8 of the 15 known unique items, and his 5 years of hard work disappeared just like that. But then something strange happens. Hyun-myung notices that this time he has obtained 1,600,000 soul points. Soul points are acquired when a player's character is defeated. This makes Hyun-myung wonder how many unique items he could obtain with this many soul points, because all of his previous deleted characters combined barely gave him 80,000 in total. Pangenia has a soul point system where players are awarded points based on the value of their defeated character. Soul points can be invested when creating a new character, and the more points invested into a talent, the smoother and stronger the growth becomes. Hyun-myung remembers a character he once made by investing 10,000 soul points into sword talent, who later earned the title of Grandmaster of Swordsmanship before being defeated. The investment limit per talent is only 10,000, which means Hyun-myung can now invest in almost everything. That is why he starts investing in many different talents, even though he would normally focus on magic for a safer run. But since this might be his first and last chance to truly enjoy the game before deleting it, he decides to go all out. Before clicking the random talent button, Hyun-myung suddenly remembers being dumped by his girlfriend in the cafeteria. She said that Hyun-myung is a good person, but she cannot keep dating someone with no clear future. She has to think about marriage as well, and her friends are already dating people from major companies, while Hyun-myung is seen as nothing more than a hardcore gamer. She leaves, telling him that she hopes he has a nice life, and then walks away. After she leaves, Hyun-myung quits his dead-end job in anger, shuts himself inside his room, and becomes completely absorbed in gaming. Thinking about how pathetic his situation feels, Hyun-myung clicks the button and starts randomly buying talents using his soul points. Soon after, Hyun-myung receives a suspicious notification stating that a hidden piece has been activated. This is the first time Hyun-myung has ever seen a message like this, and the notification continues, saying that he has satisfied the singularity condition and has been invited to Pangenia. Hyun-myung's body suddenly feels an intense pressure, and he hears the voice of someone in his head, speaking about bringing an end to the wicked god's world. Hyun-myung collapses to the ground while trying to understand the voice in his head, and soon loses consciousness. The next moment, Hyun-myung wakes up after being struck by someone who tells him to get up immediately and start walking. Hyun-myung glares at the man in confusion, and seeing this, the man threatens that if he does not get up, he will be fed to the Hydreigon. Still confused, Hyunmyeong looks around, trying to understand what is happening, but then he is struck again and ordered to get back into formation. Hyunmyeong stands up and starts walking, thinking that the Hydreigon is a monster from Pangea, and that this place also looks familiar. Hyunmyeong tests reality by opening the status window, and to his shock, it actually appears. Hyunmyeong realizes that he has truly entered Pangea. Not only that, he notices that all of his stats are at 12, even though stats from 1 to 10 should be the normal range depending on invested soul points. There should be no way this is possible, and on top of that, there are also 13 hidden traits. The next moment, the ground begins to shake, and the fighters guarding the slaves become terrified after learning that the army of the Desert Queen has broken the non-aggression pact and launched an attack. Everyone prepares for battle, while Hyunmyeong recognizes the rider beside the Desert Queen as the Snake Princess. Hyunmyeong then receives another notification informing him of the main quest, where he must survive, and the reward will be given based on the outcome. Not only that, the message also states that if Hyunmyeong falls here, then both his in-game body and his real-world body will also be lost. Hyunmyeong is shocked after reading this. In the next moment, the enemy fires arrows toward them, causing many of the slaves to fall. Seeing this, Hyunmyeong's hidden trait, Heart of the Iron-Blooded Monarch, activates. It is a linked trait that only appears when every physical talent is maxed out. It prevents exhaustion, reduces the chance of being caught off guard, and allows Hyunmyeong to quickly grasp the situation. As the fighters begin striking down the slaves, Hyunmyeong grabs a sword from a nearby body and decides to move. While Hyunmyeong is picking up the sword, a fighter tries to attack him, but the moment Hyunmyeong grips the weapon master's hidden traits activate, and Hyunmyeong defeats the fighter in a single motion. The Desert Queen's fighters rush in to attack Hyunmyeong, but no matter who comes at him, the outcome is always the same. None of them can stop him. Even though Hyunmyeong is constantly switching weapons, he defeats his opponents like a true weapon expert. One of the fighters charges at him with an axe, which Hyunmyeong swiftly dodges before counterattacking. The reason he can respond so quickly is not only because he is now skilled with every weapon, but also because he can see the attack path of his enemies. Hyunmyeong reads the movement, defeats the axe warrior, and then picks up the axe to continue fighting the others. Now, Hyunmyeong stands there with a sword in one hand and an axe in the other, looking extremely exhausted. The remaining fighters are now afraid to face him, especially since they were already informed that the entire expedition was unable to fight properly due to injuries. Hyunmyeong's weapon proficiency is undergoing major growth because of the hidden trait Masterful Hands. Now, Hyunmyeong has reached level 6 proficiency for both sword and spear. The maximum proficiency level is 10, and Hyunmyeong is already at level 6. Proficiency level 6 means he can use weapons at the level of a famous knight, and this is only possible because of the hidden trait. Otherwise, Hyunmyeong would not have lasted this long. But even Hyunmyeong knows that this miracle will not last forever, because there are at least 500 troops gathered here, and he needs to survive while facing all of them. This makes Hyunmyeong realize just how terrible this quest truly is. Now, let's find out the reason why the Desert Queen attacked the expedition. A woman sitting on the throne, who appears to be the queen, learns that the expedition to the demon world has failed. She asks the Snake Princess if that is true and glares at her. The queen is worried that the government of the central continent will blame them if it becomes known that the desert city of Faisalmere did not participate in the expedition. That is why she wants to stop that from happening at all costs. She orders the Snake Princess to head to the Kaltzman Desert and eliminate all the remaining members of the expedition. They must erase all evidence that could prove Faisalmere did not send any troops, and anything that could connect them to the failure of the expedition. As a reward for completing this mission, the queen promises to lift the curse placed on the Snake Princess. This gives the Snake Princess a strong reason to obey, so she accepts the order, but the queen reminds her that failure is not an option. Soon after, the queen receives a report from her fighters that there is still a single slave holding out. The scene then shifts back to Hyunmyeong, who is completely exhausted, but his level has increased and is now at level 2. Because of leveling up, his health and mana are restored, and his fatigue is removed. Hyunmyeong's body undergoes noticeable changes, becoming stronger, and at that moment, the Snake Princess arrives to face Hyunmyeong herself. Hyunmyeong seems to recognize her. Her name is Isabella von Dergen, and she is level 8. Hyun-myung cannot see her full stats because his character understanding level is too low. He knows that he cannot defeat her, no matter how many times he tries. Since the highest level in Pangania is 10, level 7 is considered the point where true strength begins. From level 7 and above, the difference becomes overwhelming, and gaps in level are extremely difficult to overcome. Since Isabella is level 8, she can be considered one of the strongest individuals anywhere. Simply put, she is on the level of top-tier leaders from famous organizations. With Hyun-myung's current stats, facing her is almost impossible. While checking her information, he notices a status effect stating that she cannot leave this area due to the Desert Queen's curse. Meanwhile, Isabella leaps forward and lands in front of him, complimenting him for being interesting, but saying that he still has to fall here. Her overwhelming presence alone makes it hard to breathe. The reason Hyun-myung kept playing Pangania was because he enjoyed extreme difficulty. Even in the hardest games, Hyun-myung would always find a way to clear them, no matter how unfair they seemed. He was known for pushing through challenges that others gave up on, and if Hyun-myung's guess is correct, then he may have found a way to avoid this fight. Isabella moves in to strike, but just as her weapon is about to reach him, Hyun-myung suddenly smiles and asks if she wants to be free from the Queen's curse. Isabella stops immediately and glares at him, demanding to know who he is. Hyun-myung lies and says that he reads the stars and guides people by their light. He claims to be a star-bearer. He offers to help her escape the Queen's curse so she can finally leave the desert. Isabella is shocked by this and begins to think carefully about his words. Hyun-myung is relieved that his lie about being a star-bearer worked. A star-bearer is an NPC-only class that can only exist after surpassing the maximum level, something players can never achieve. Of course, Hyun-myung is not a real star-bearer, but to remove the status ailment caused by the Queen's curse, Isabella would need the blessing of the stars from someone with that class. Since Isabella wants to escape the curse, she has no choice but to listen. The reason Hyun-myung is certain that she wants to be free from the curse is quite simple. Isabella is a character that Hyun-myung himself created. Isabella was an unfortunate character that Hyun-myung had to neglect because he chose the wrong starting point. From the player's perspective, the Queen's curse is a device meant to keep the player within the bounds of the starting map during the early game. But a player's character is ultimately meant to travel the world and reach the ending of the game. However, Hyun-myung left such a being in this place, and she has been bound here by the Queen's curse ever since. After thinking for a moment, Isabella asks for his name. So instead of giving his real one, Hyun-myung sets his character name as Randolph. Both of them silently stare at each other, and then Isabella begins to walk away, saying that she will postpone dealing with him for now, but if it turns out that he is lying, she will make sure he pays for it. After that, she orders the fighters to escort Randolph, saying that he is now an honored guest. Randolph then receives a notification about the quest completion, and the system begins calculating the results. Randolph's performance breaks previous records, and his rewards keep increasing because of his actions. In return, he obtains the broken piece of the golden scale and the soul of the Hydreigon. He also receives the sword of Michaela. Randolph falls to the ground, thinking that he somehow survived, and that he has received a total of 220 points, and that his results will be added to the Hall of Flame for main quests. Later that night, Randolph is taking a bath in his room while checking his status window. There, he reads about the soul of the Hydreigon, which is infamous for having dropped only once since the game's release, and the sword of Michaela, which is considered a must-have item for the early game. Randolph never thought he would obtain both at the same time, but he has no idea about the true importance of the broken piece of the golden scale. Its description mentions synchronization between reality and Pangania. Randolph opens his status window and focuses on reading the information about the boundary between Pangania and reality. Right now, the breakdown rate of Pangania is at 7.66%, and as the breakdown increases, the boundary between Pangania and reality begins to weaken. When the breakdown exceeds 10%, the first major crack will occur. Randolph then reads something even more shocking. The Hall of Flame has been opened. Because he has cleared a survival quest, the logout feature has now been unlocked. However, there is also a warning stating that when he logs out, his character will remain vulnerable. he suddenly realizes that the two players he used to play the game with, who suddenly quit without explanation, likely did not quit at all. They were probably summoned to this world just like him. Furthermore, Randolph now has the logout feature, which means he can finally leave this cursed game. After reading this, he was afraid that he would be trapped in this place forever, but now he finally has a way out. Randolph clicks the logout button, and before his soul leaves this world, the system gives one final warning. If his character falls, then he will also fall in real life. The logout process completes, and Hyunmyeong finds himself back on Earth, but the sky outside is red, and chaos is spreading everywhere. It turns out that Earth is now being attacked by monsters. Hyunmyeong looks outside and is completely shocked to see that the monsters from Pangea have appeared in the real world. Hyunmyeong thinks of it as a disturbingly vivid dream, but the moment he notices the bag and the piece of golden scale, he realizes that everything that happened was real. Hyunmyeong puts the golden piece of scale into his pocket and then tries to search for the game on his computer, but it turns out that the page has been removed from the internet. While Hyunmyeong is thinking about this, he hears someone shouting and asking for help. People are being chased by monsters, and the police's bullets are ineffective against them, no matter how close they fire. Hyunmyeong receives an alert notification on his phone and looks outside after hearing the screams, only to discover that the monsters from Pangea have appeared in the real world. Hyunmyeong becomes terrified and stumbles backward, and the moment he sits down, the golden piece of scale falls out of his pocket. As he looks at his status window, Hyunmyeong wonders if the boundary between reality and Pangea has already broken. He doesn't know what to do at first, but then he notices the golden piece of scale again and thinks that if monsters from the game can roam freely in reality, then maybe items obtained in the game can also be used here. Hyunmyeong rushes to his computer and grabs the bag lying nearby. He opens the bag and finds Michaela's sword, the Hydreigon's soul, and other items inside. The scene then shifts to the streets outside, where many people have already fallen. There, a mother is running for her life while holding her beloved daughter, with monsters closing in behind them. While running, her daughter asks why her father is not coming, and the mother reassures her that her father will come soon. But in the very next moment, a violent impact strikes nearby. The mother throws her daughter away to protect her and becomes trapped under the rubble. Another survivor rushes over and asks if they are all right. The woman says that she is fine and desperately begs the survivor to take her daughter, Yoonji, and keep her safe. Even though the survivor wants to help the woman, she knows that staying there is not a wise choice, so she apologizes while promising to protect Yoonji at all costs. She quickly grabs Yoonji, but in the next moment, she sees a monster rushing toward them. Seeing the frightening shape of the monster, she wonders if this is how her life will end. In the very next instant, she realizes that the monster has been taken down by Hyunmyeong. She feels overwhelming relief after surviving and looks at Hyunmyeong, wondering who he is. More monsters rush toward Hyunmyeong, but suddenly a 9-headed Hydreigon appears and strikes them down. Seeing such a creature leaves her completely shocked. Then Hyunmyeong rides the Hydreigon and tells the woman to stay still. She is so dazed that she can no longer tell whether this is a dream or reality. Because of her shock, she loosens her grip on Yoonji, who immediately runs back to her trapped mother in panic. Seeing this, other survivors also rush in to help. The woman then turns around again and sees Hyunmyeong taking down monsters while riding the Hydreigon, and once more wonders just who Hyunmyeong really is. Monsters appeared simultaneously across the entire world, not just in Korea. They immediately attacked people and caused massive destruction to human civilization. However, they were not the only ones who appeared. Along with the monsters, warriors also appeared, defeating them down as if they were nothing. Even though the monsters were immune to bullets. In every region, there are players who step forward and promise to protect ordinary people. A new world filled with monsters is about to descend. The world is now rapidly changing, and people must unite their strength to survive. Or at least, that is what the player named Massacre is watching online. He clicks his tongue and calls them fools, thinking they are wasting their fragments of the broken golden scale. It has now been confirmed that reality and Pangea are beginning to merge. Over time, Pangea and reality may become a single world. In the coming age of chaos, everyone will be a competitor. Those who obtain more fragments and more power will become the protagonists of this era. Not only that, the The ranking that had remained unchanged for 2 years has finally been updated, and the top score is an unbelievable total of 220 points. Player Massacre wonders if that Randolph guy is actually Phantom, also known as Ghost, since no one knows his true identity and everyone refers to him by those two nicknames. He was the first person to form an NPC expedition called the Demon Realm Expedition, and the only one to reach just before the game's final clear, even though it ended in complete failure. Player Massacre believes that Ghost is undeniably the #1 player in Pangania. Since the strongest character a player possesses is summoned upon death, Player Massacre believes that Ghost must have been summoned into Pangania the moment the expedition failed. Although appearance and equipment are reset, talents from the previous character carry over, which explains why Randolph achieved such a high score. Randolph is now back in Pangania, and while taking a bath, he thinks about how monsters have appeared in reality, and how players have also been summoned. They have taken on the forms of their characters from Pangania, so the situation is becoming clearer to him now. With Randolph's last character, he nearly reached the game's ending with the Demon Realm Expedition, but hired NPC mercenaries blocked their progress, and even friendly NPC companions betrayed them. No matter what possibility Hyunmyeong considered, the interference was always far beyond expectations. But now, Randolph starts to question the possibility that all of those interfering variables were actually players who had been summoned, just like him. Players who did not want the ending to be reached, or players who considered Hyunmyeong their rival. Thinking about this, Randolph gets out of the bath and starts walking to meet Isabella, coming to the conclusion that people targeted him back then, and that may still be the case now. If the boundary between reality and Pangania has collapsed, Randolph cannot simply hide by logging out anymore. To secure his safety in both worlds, he needs to grow stronger as quickly as possible. He reaches Isabella's room, where she is sitting on a chair, and she asks if Randolph has finished talking with the stars. Randolph confirms that he has and says that he has come to keep his promise, but only under one condition. Isabella asks what the condition is, and Randolph replies that he wants her to take him to the sanctuary. She is startled by this and asks if Randolph has lost his mind. The second main quest is to obtain a class, and the class Randolph wants can only be acquired at a sanctuary. That is why he lied and said that he could obtain a star there. Now inside the sanctuary, Isabella is walking ahead after defeating the guards, and seeing this, Randolph realizes that there is no more reliable ally than her, since she needed only a few minutes to take down all the guards. Curious about why someone like her would agree to help him, let's go back a few hours earlier. After hearing about the star, Isabella asks if that is really true, and Randolph confirms it, saying that it is hidden. Hyunmyeong once found the 4th star by chance while raising his previous character, and he is probably the only player who knows its exact location. That is why Randolph explains to Isabella that they must obtain the star in order to lift her curse through the blessing of the stars. Isabella shouts in frustration, clearly worried, because the sanctuary is a place that not everyone can enter, and it would be dangerous for her if someone found out about this. Randolph knows that Isabella can enter, so he pressures her by saying that there is no time left and that she must think carefully, because this is her last chance to leave the desert. Then she follows Randolph and reaches the holy ground. Upon entering, Randolph receives a notification that he must explore the sanctuary, and that rewards will be granted based on the exploration rate. The system also warns him about his level, since the minimum requirement is level 8. Another warning appears, stating that the area is overflowing with poison and demonic energy, and that entry is not advised if demon resistance is low. However, this does not become a problem for Randolph, because he is protected by the giant's demon resistance hidden trait. Under normal circumstances, a level 2 beginner would never be able to set foot in this place. If Randolph simply sent Isabella ahead to clear the sanctuary exploration subquest, the rewards would probably be very good. But the subquest is not what matters right now, because this is where Randolph can obtain the class he wants. Randolph and Isabella soon reach a dead end where the path can only be crossed by jumping. Seeing this, Isabella smiles and starts to walk away, saying that they must have taken the wrong path. She comments that even a star bearer can make mistakes. But Randolph stops her and explains that the bridge is actually a trap because the downward air currents are designed to sweep away anyone who crosses without knowing. After hearing this, she is about to tease him, But when she realizes what he means, he smiles and asks if she is scared. Randolph is exactly right, but this only makes her angry. She quickly denies it, saying that she knows no such thing as fear, especially since she is called the Snake Princess. Hearing that, Randolph calls her timid, which she immediately rejects. She hesitates and says that the odds of it being a trap are high, and conveniently adds that she has a cramp in her leg, so she is just checking if there is a safer route. Ignoring her excuses, Randolph sits down and decides to carry her on his back. She becomes extremely embarrassed and asks if Randolph has lost his mind. Since she claims to have a cramp, he insists on carrying her because there is no time left. When dawn breaks and the fallen guards are discovered, she will immediately become a suspect, and the Queen's pursuit team will be sent after her. So he suggests that it is better for him to carry her and move quickly rather than wasting time out of fear. She is very embarrassed, but in the end, she allows him to carry her, saying that it is only because her leg is cramped. After lifting her onto his back, Randolph follows a specific route and jumps across the bridge. She notices that Randolph is heading toward what looks like the wrong path, but he tells her to trust him and then jumps across an area where there is no visible bridge. In truth, Randolph's hidden trait, Mutant, has been activated, allowing him to see secrets that are invisible to ordinary eyes. Isabella is shocked when she realizes there is a hidden path, and Randolph confirms that this is the real route forward. This makes her wonder how he knows a path that even she does not know. And in this sanctuary, which is overflowing with poison and demonic energy, Randolph is not even struggling to breathe. This makes her think that too many strange things are happening to simply explain it away as him being a star-bearer. Randolph looks at her and teases her, saying that he did not know the second-in-command was afraid of heights. This only makes her angrier, because he is acting so relaxed in front of her, and it does not feel like confidence that comes only from strength. Instead, she feels as if he is greeting an old friend he has not seen in years. That is why she asks if they have met before. Randolph replies that they have never met in the same place, which means that he has seen her, but she has never seen him. They enter the secret realm within the sanctuary and suddenly find themselves standing in a beautiful area filled with greenery. Randolph realizes that this is a domain barrier spread across the entire region, and only those who follow the designated path can see what lies ahead. If Randolph's memory is correct, the next thing to happen should be the activation of the golems. Judging by the size of the rune on the golems' chests, they are at least upper tier, which means that even being targeted by one would be fatal for Randolph. He decides to let Isabella handle the fight. The golems charge toward her, but she easily takes them down with her sword, and continues dealing with the remaining ones without slowing down. Watching her fight, Randolph thinks that she is clearly an assassination-type character. It feels ridiculous, because even though he created this character himself, he now truly understands what level 8 actually means. After she finishes dealing with all the golems, Randolph realizes that the system now recognizes him and Isabella as a party. He receives a notification that he has acquired the class Golem Maker, and the system asks whether he wants to accept or decline it. In Pangea, summoner-type classes are rare, so Golem Maker is a very good class, and in terms of class rank, it is at least high tier. However, this is not the class Randolph wants. That is why he declines it, because there is someone else who can give him the class he is truly aiming for. Suddenly, the area that looked green and peaceful turns dark as a sinister mist spreads everywhere. The system announces that the master of the mountain where the nameless star is buried, the Old King, has become enraged by the intruders. The Titan guard protecting the star has finally revealed himself, Old King Dramit. The moment this massive figure appears, Randolph receives another warning that his level is far below the sanctuary's recommended level, which is level 10. The ancient king, Dramit, finally reveals himself, releasing overwhelming pressure across the area. Seeing the massive mountain guardian, Isabella asks if he seriously came here expecting her to deal with the mountain guardian for him. Randolph tells her not to worry, saying that he believes the mountain guardian is very gentle and never attacks first, or at least that is what he thought. However, the mountain guardian suddenly attacks Isabella, leaving her no choice but to dodge. She then ends up sitting on the ground in confusion, and Randolph is also confused as they both look at each other. Randolph finds this strange because he remembers it as a friendly creature that once helped guide the way. While the mountain guardian continues attacking Isabella, She asks Randolph if the Mountain Guardian looks friendly to him. The Mountain Guardian then starts speaking and declares that she must defeat him to prove her qualification. Isabella replies in shock, saying that she is not the one challenging the sanctuary. However, it turns out the Mountain Guardian already knows that she is denying it, even though she defeated the Sentinel earlier. The Mountain Guardian attacks her again, saying that if she cannot prove herself, then she will never leave alive. Isabella keeps dodging the attacks and says that she does not intend to challenge anything, and while avoiding the strikes, she asks Randolph to tell her what to do. Randolph himself is shocked, because when he cleared this place before, he does not remember ever defeating Dramit, so he wonders if something has changed. Then Randolph remembers the lore about the ancient King Dramit, the Mountain Guardian who guards the star, a greater being with a gigantic body. According to Dramit's lore, he is an enchanted beast whose body grew and whose wisdom increased from the spiritual energy of the star. Randolph had cleared this place as Ghost when he was raising Wilhelm, a 10-5-star, transcendent rank character. When he came to the sanctuary as Wilhelm, Dramit obediently guided him to the star. The reason for that must be simple. Wilhelm was qualified. In short, if the challenger is weaker than him, then Dramit attacks. Back then, Wilhelm was overwhelmingly stronger. Now, the question is what to do next. Isabella is struck by Dramit and can do nothing but take the hit and fall to the ground. Her body is not moving properly because of the poison in the sanctuary. She starts to wonder if stepping into this place was a mistake. Dramit is about to attack her again, but Randolph shouts his name and tells him to stop. Dramit flinches when he hears his real name and turns back, asking how Randolph knows it. Standing there, Randolph claims that he is Wilhelm, Dramit's former master, who has returned. Dramit laughs at this and says there is no way someone who is not even prepared to receive the star and is weaker than the Golem Sentinel could be Wilhelm, who was once a powerful human. Dramit believes that only Wilhelm was a true transcendent worthy of being his master. However, Wilhelm failed the Demon Realm expedition, and all his stars fell. That means Wilhelm met a complete end. Even if he is gone, a lowly creature like Randolph has no right to speak Dramit's name. Dramit opens his mouth to attack Randolph, but Randolph tells him to honor the contract they made. Dramit immediately stops and asks how Randolph knows about the existence of the contract with Wilhelm, because no one should be able to know about it. Hyunmyeong's contract with Dramit states that the one who obtains the star of the mountain buried by the star learns the true name of the Mountain Guardian and becomes the new master of the mountain. The Mountain Guardian must obey his master's commands. The contents of the contract cannot be revealed to anyone. If it is revealed, the one who breaks the contract will suffer the curse of the pact. The reason Randolph says this is because he remembers the lore, and fortunately, the game's rules still apply. As expected, since this is Randolph's body, the curse does not affect him. Dramit once again asks who Randolph really is, so Randolph tells Dramit to guide him to the star, and the star itself will prove the truth. Dramit replies that the star will show no mercy to those without qualification. Randolph says that they will find out when they reach the star, and asks if Dramit is afraid that the star will acknowledge him and reveal that he is truly Dramit's master. Dramit finds this very laughable and asks Randolph what gives him the confidence to act so arrogantly. In the end, Dramit agrees to guide him to the star, but he does not believe that Randolph is Wilhelm. However, since Randolph knows about the contract, eliminating him does not sit right with Dramit, so he decides to let the star itself judge Randolph. After that, they reach the location of the star, and Randolph reveals that the skull placed on the altar is actually the star. Isabella finds this very surprising, and to explain more clearly, Randolph reveals that it is actually Leah's face. When Leah, the twin goddess of Pangea, died, her body was split into 32 fragments and scattered across the continent. Those 32 fragments of Leah's body are what they refer to as stars, and they are used as boundary catalysts for transcendence. Randolph grabs the skull and suddenly finds himself surrounded by a storm of flames. This makes Isabella very worried, and Dramit laughs, saying that he already warned Randolph that this would happen. But to their surprise, Randolph is completely fine and becomes very angry at Dramit for acting that way. The star only eliminates a player in one scenario, which is when they acquire it by bypassing Dramit. No matter how messy the process was, Randolph is sure that he did pass through Dramit, so there should be no issue. The real problem now is whether he can obtain the class he wants or not. He has never tried obtaining that class himself before, and only learned about it by accident. The skull suddenly begins speaking in broken phrases and then shatters into pieces. All of Randolph's mana is converted into star energy, and Randolph acquires the main skill Star Pierce, which is currently at level 1, along with a level 1 sub-skill, Blessing of the Star. Because of the star's effect, all of his stats increase by 5, and he will gain even more power as the number and types of stars he possesses increase. Randolph has now acquired the class Star Successor. Isabella is amazed to see that Randolph has absorbed the star, and while standing there, he asks her why she wants her curse to be lifted. She says that she wants to leave the desert and find her family's descent. Randolph agrees to help her, but with one condition. She must serve him for 1 year, and after that, he will grant her freedom and help her search for her family's descent. Hearing this, she feels a sense of déjà vu because the Queen once said the same thing, but Randolph tells her that he is not like the Queen and that he does not lie. Seeing the sincerity in his eyes, she agrees to serve him and bows in respect. After that, Randolph turns to Dramit and says that the owner of the star is now Dramit's master. Dramit nervously confirms this, and Randolph smiles, ordering him to bow his head. Now, the system begins calculating the reward for completing main quest number 2, obtaining a class. Randolph now has a total score of 230 points, and because so many higher authorities have taken interest in him, his reward has been upgraded twice. Meanwhile, in the royal chamber, the Queen receives a report that Isabella has entered the sanctuary with the slave she captured, so she orders her subordinates to seize both of them immediately. Meanwhile, on Earth, at a cafe, 3 people are holding a meeting about Randolph because they suspect him of being the ghost. They can ignore the progress of one of Randolph's quests, but achieving a higher class score than Gracia is impossible unless someone knows the game inside out. They discuss that the appearance of a 5-year veteran ghost player is likely to create a huge ruckus. During the meeting, they suggest contacting Randolph before anyone else does, but the female member of the group points out that it's impossible, since they have searched for him for years and never found him. The reason for this is that until now, Ghost was not an actual player, and now that he has become a real player, there must be a way to locate him. One of the men suggests trying fishing since the secret auction hall opened as a reward for main quest 2. They believe that Ghost will probably use it. The female adds that he will need tons of items if he wants to rank first in main quest 3. Fishing can be done in the secret auction hall, where players trade items. A high-quality item is uploaded at a cheap price, and then a twin ability of a talisman is used to attach a location tracking effect to the buyer. Newbie players who do not know this often buy a cheap auction item and end up being tracked, robbed, or even killed. Despite knowing the process, they wonder if a 5-year veteran player like Ghost would actually fall for it, since he would know every talisman option in the game. Hearing this plan, the female begins acting oddly, claiming that Ghost might fall for it because, no matter how many times he failed to clear the game, he still initiated the Great Expedition, which she believes is definitely abnormal. She wants to kidnap and recruit him into their guild before anyone else does. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Player Massacre receives a system notification that the rankings have changed, and he is now excluded from the class acquisition ranking. The rankings for Main Quest 2 have been updated, and Randolph is once again at the top with 230 points. The system also notifies that Massacre's rights to Main Quest 2 and participation in the secret auction have been revoked. Reading this, Massacre wonders what kind of class Randolph could have to earn so many points. However, he is not worried about temporarily losing access to the auction, as he knows that as long as he eliminates anyone in the top ranks, he can climb back up. The scene then shifts to Randolph, who receives a system notification about the completion of the subquest, Sanctuary Exploration. His exploration rate is 100%, an unbelievable achievement. The system declares Randolph the first player to perfectly clear the desert sanctuary. For this accomplishment, he is awarded the achievement Conqueror of a Sanctuary first. While riding on Dramit's back, Randolph discovers that he has also obtained a teleport book as the completion reward. The book is of epic rarity. While riding Dramit, the ride turns out to be far less uncomfortable than Randolph had imagined. Randolph can now escape the sanctuary and complete the exploration, effectively killing 2 birds with 1 stone. He finally levels up as well, although his progress is much slower than that of regular characters because he has so many talents. This means it takes more than 10 times the normal amount of experience to level up, but in return, his stats grow significantly. What matters even more to Randolph are the items he received as rewards from the main quest, 2 extremely rare items for his current level. One of them is the Shadow Cloak, which grants the wearer invisibility when activated, essentially a free stealth skill, a valuable asset. While exploring the sanctuary, Dramit senses intruders approaching and alerts Randolph. Isabella believes them to be the Queen's pursuit squad. She confirms that the Queen herself will not come, but the pursuit squad is a sizable force, and even with the Mountain Guardian, they cannot handle all of them. Randolph dons the cloak and turns to her, saying that Dramit, as the Guardian, will handle the squad. Both Randolph and Isabella then jump off Dramit, leaving the pursuit team to confront the Guardian. Dramit engages the pursuit squad while Randolph and Isabella make their escape. Isabella worries about Dramit, but Randolph reassures her that he will be fine since the Queen is not present. Randolph reasons that the full pursuit squad has likely not arrived yet, and that this is probably just the advance unit. If they are stalled until the main force arrives and the sanctuary is completely surrounded, escape will be impossible. Since the entire pursuit is after Isabella and Randolph, their priority is to leave quickly. Hearing this, Isabella is relieved that Randolph is not abandoning Dramit, acknowledging that he would otherwise be defenseless. Randolph explains that the Mountain Guardian cannot leave the sanctuary, so only he and Isabella can run. To escape, they must use the warp gate located at the edge of the desert. Since Randolph has lifted Isabella's curse using the blessing of the stars, the warp gate poses no problem. The only real challenge is that the gate requires time to activate. They stand in front of the gate, and once it activates, it will transport them out of the desert. However, activation will take roughly half a day. There is no real place to hide in the desert, so it would be ideal if the entire pursuit squad entered the sanctuary at once, but they would still be able to track them. Thanks to Dramit delaying them, Randolph and Isabella are able to leave the sanctuary, buying them some precious time. During this interval, Randolph tells Isabella that he needs to communicate with the stars. This is important, but he also needs to check what is happening in reality, so he cannot stay logged in indefinitely. He asks Isabella if he can trust her to stay focused. She draws her weapon to protect him. Randolph logs out and awakens as Hyun-myung, lying in his bed. He stands up, still not fully accustomed to the sensation of returning from Randolph's body to his real one. Hyun-myung doesn't find any news alerts or disaster warnings, but it is clear that reality and Pangea are gradually merging. Still, there is so much he doesn't understand. More monsters are sure to appear soon, and the presence of players in the real world also worries him. Hyun-myung realizes that he will need to return to reality periodically to gather information. While checking his phone, he receives a message from his ex-girlfriend, Kim Seo-yeon, which surprises him. In the restaurant, all the customers and employees can overhear Seo-yeon arguing with her boyfriend on the phone. The boyfriend claims he already bought her food and clothes, but she continues to complain. She accuses him of flirting under the pretense of being wealthy, but now acting stingy, and insists she hasn't done anything wrong. Her boyfriend suggests talking in person, but she hangs up, claiming she's meeting a friend and has nothing more to say. She ends the call, clearly frustrated, and thinks about Hyun-myung, who always listened to her silently. She regrets dumping him but blames him, thinking their breakup wouldn't have happened if he had money. Soon after, Hyun-myung arrives to meet her. She smiles, noting that he came earlier than expected, but he cuts straight to the point, asking why she called him urgently. She invites him to chat and compliments his changed appearance, noting he looks fitter than before. He responds that she should just tell him what she wants, as he needs to leave soon. She notices that he now carries himself with pride, unlike his usual self, and comments that some things never change, like him coming immediately when she calls, which she has always liked about him. She begins reminiscing about the good times before their breakup, chatting on, but Hyun-myung is shocked to realize she invited him to a restaurant without even ordering him a drink. Annoyed, he stands and decides to leave. Seo-yeon becomes angry, but he keeps walking, Asking if her boyfriend knows she is meeting her ex, Hyunmi-young suggests that if she plans to flirt with multiple men, she should delete not only her profile photo, but all her social media pictures. His words hit the mark, and he leaves. She shouts after him, demanding he wait. If this were the past, Hyunmi-young would have panicked, unsure of what to say, but now he remains unusually calm, perhaps a result of Randolph's growth in Pangenia affecting him in reality. Outside the restaurant, Hyunmi-young notices a fight in progress. A man wielding a knife is attempting to harass a woman. Without hesitation, Hyunmi-young intervenes and stops him. Even though Hyunmi-young is not using the fragment of the broken golden scale, he still feels as if he could easily injure this guy's wrist in an instant. This makes him completely certain that his real body is changing. After throwing the attacker to the ground, he asks the woman if she is all right. She thanks him again for saving her, and Hyunmi-young realizes that she is the same woman he encountered earlier. Noticing him staring, she asks if he wants to say something, but he denies it, claiming he was merely reminded of someone he knew. At that moment, the man attacks Hyunmi-young again with the knife, but he dodges effortlessly and slams him to the ground. The woman is amazed by his fighting style. Once the situation is under control, the police arrive and attempt to take Hyunmi-young to the station. The woman intervenes, demanding to know why they are arresting him when he was only trying to help. Despite her protest, the officers insist, claiming that Hyunmi-young's actions constituted an act of violence. Angered, she points out that the man was armed and argues that Hyunmi-young should not have stood by and let her die. Hyunmi-young scratches his head and mutters that he doesn't have time for this. When the officers continue to insist on enforcing the law, the woman asks if they would take responsibility if Hyunmi-young got dragged into further complications as a witness. The police are caught off guard. She then introduces herself as Kim Hannah, a CK broadcasting reporter, and shows her business card, telling the officers to speak with the victim instead of harassing an innocent bystander. The police hesitate, intimidated by her threat to publicize the incident. They have no choice but to let Hyunmi-young go, though Hannah must accompany them as the complainant. Hannah turns to Hyunmi-young, thanking him for his help, and gives him her business card, introducing herself as a dedicated reporter covering Dimension Warriors. Hyunmi-young, unfamiliar with the term, learns from her that Dimension Warriors are the people who appeared the day the monsters invaded and fought to defeat them, earning that title. He wonders if she assumes he has no interest in social issues. Examining the card, he guesses that she is referring to players like him. Since almost nobody mentions Pangenia directly, he assumes an interdimensional attack sounds more believable than a real-life video game. Hannah then asks if he has a business card to share. At that moment, Seoyeon arrives, grabbing his arm and asking if he is hurt anywhere. Hannah asks if Seoyeon is his girlfriend, but Hyunmi-young boldly denies it and tells Hannah that he doesn't have a business card. They exchange contacts while Seoyeon watches in shock. Hannah begins to leave, inviting Hyunmi-young to dinner later, promising that she will pay. He accepts, leaving Seoyeon standing there, frustrated, angry, and clearly unsure how to react. While walking, Hannah receives a phone call from someone who addresses her as the Supreme Authority Kim of their broadcast station. She immediately tells the caller not to refer to her that way. The person informs her that the deputy director, who went on a business trip, left an assignment for her, an interview with Gracia. Hannah instantly recognizes him as the hero who was celebrated for saving America. She wonders why they would want her to handle such a high-profile figure. The caller admits they have no idea either, but explains that the superhero Gracia specifically requested to meet her and plans to come to Korea. The scene then shifts to Pangenia, where Isabella is breathing heavily after fighting off so many enemies. The pursuit squad demands that Isabella hand over the slave behind her, claiming they will pretend none of this happened. When she does not respond, they charge at her. In the next moment, the warp gate activates, freeing the starting point. Randolph returns and compliments Isabella on her efforts. She asks if he has finished communicating with the stars, and he confirms that he has. Randolph then attacks the pursuit squad, explaining that since she kept her promise to protect him, he must now keep his promise to her. Randolph uses the exclusive skill of the star successor, known as Star Pierce, which lasts for 41 seconds. All the enemies are struck by the skill, and Isabella is amazed to witness the power of the Star Bearer. Before leaving, Randolph offers Isabella the choice to stay behind, assuring her that he will not stop her, but she shows her affection and decides to remain with him. The curse of limits that had been placed on Isabella is nullified by the blessing of the stars. With the warp connection established from the Kaltzman Desert to the central continent, Arcana, the warp succeeds, and they arrive in the golden city of Arcana. Arcana is a city where materialism has reached its peak. The city is bustling with gold and extravagance. Randolph explains that in this city, everything can be resolved with money, so their first priority is to gather funds. Isabella smirks and shows a pouch containing 300 gold coins, reassuring Randolph not to worry. Seeing this, Randolph comments that such an amount would barely last one night. Isabella is shocked. Randolph smiles, explaining that prices are different here, and even a simple loaf of bread costs 50 gold coins. Isabella, still in shock, asks what they should do next. And though Isabella is initially confused, he reassures her, saying he is very lucky when it comes to gold. In truth, Randolph possesses the hidden trait called the blessing of gold.